I stepped out of my small car and shut the door gently. The church parking lot was full and bright, full of flowers and shiny cars. My heart already felt heavy. I smoothed the front of my cream pantsuit and checked my reflection in the window. No glitter. No bright colors. No loud earrings. Just like Brianna ordered. I had kept my makeup soft and simple. My hair was in a plain low bun. Even my nails were short and natural. I looked neat and calm, but I could feel my chest pounding as I walked toward the church doors. At the entrance, Barbara stood near the planter, her eyes scanning everyone who arrived. When she saw me, her gaze slid from my hair to my shoes, slow and sharp. She leaned closer to the planter and whispered something I could not hear. Two ushers stepped forward and blocked my way with stiff smiles. One of them said they were not sure I was allowed to sit in the family section and they needed to check with the bride. I froze there in front of the open doors, people walking around me. I held my small clutch so tight my fingers hurt. Behind me I heard a soft voice say, "That is her sister." A week earlier, my phone had lit up with Brianna's name. I answered with a smile, hoping she wanted to share some happy wedding news. Instead her voice came out tight. She said she wanted to talk about my outfit for the wedding. Before I could answer, she started listing rules. No bright colors. No fancy dress. No dramatic hair or bold lipstick. Even my nails had to be simple. She said I could only come if I promised to look plain and not draw attention. I tried to laugh and make a joke about how I had worn a thrift store dress to her engagement dinner and everyone had loved it. She did not laugh. She reminded me of that night in a sharp voice and said I had stolen her light, even if I had not meant to. Her words stung. I told her I would never try to make her day about me. She cut me off and said, "If you cannot respect this, do not come." Then she ended the call. I sat on my couch, staring at the dark screen, feeling a strange mix of hurt and shock. I wondered when my own sister started seeing me as a rival instead of family. After that call, old memories rose in my mind like dust in sunlight. I thought about when we were kids and I won a science prize at school. Mom had hugged me, but later she pulled me aside and said I should not brag too much because Brianna was already feeling sad. I remembered a birthday party when an aunt said my dress looked nicer than Brianna's. That night Brianna cried in her room while Mom sat on her bed, telling her she was just as special. I was told to change my outfit for the photos. Little moments that once felt normal now looked different. I had learned to tone myself down so my sister would not feel overshadowed. I started to see that this dress rule was not only about one big day. It was years of small cuts, quiet jealousy, and quiet comparisons suddenly turning into one loud order. Sitting alone in my apartment, I let myself admit something I had pushed away. Part of me did not want to go at all. Part of me wanted to stay home, watch a movie, and let Brianna have her perfect day without my face in any picture. That thought scared me almost as much as her words. A few days later, the family group chat blew up with wedding excitement. Someone posted old pictures from the engagement dinner. There was one of me in that blue thrift store dress, head tipped back in laughter, Brianna beside me holding her ring. As I looked at it, a new message popped up under the photo. It was from Brianna. The words made my stomach twist. It said, "I am not letting her pull that again at my wedding. I am the bride this time." I stared at the screen, stunned. Before I could even react, the message vanished. Brianna had deleted it. But it was too late. I had already seen every word burn across my phone. My hands shook as I took a screenshot, saving proof that I was not imagining things. I sat there with my thumb hovering over her name, trying to decide if I should call her and ask what she meant. The urge to confront her battled with the tired feeling in my chest. I knew that if I pushed, she would say I was being dramatic. In the end, I put my phone face down on the table and sat in silence, feeling myself slowly fold inward. My mind drifted back to the first time I had met Tyler's mother, Barbara. It was a small dinner at a nice restaurant, meant to bring both families together. I had worn a soft green dress that hit right below my knees and simple gold earrings. When I walked in, Barbara gave me a look that felt like a measuring tape. Then she smiled and said my dress was very pretty, in a tone that somehow sounded more like a warning than praise. She turned to Brianna and said loudly that she loved how Brianna dressed more modestly, because modest style showed respect and was better for a future wife. The table laughed politely. I felt my cheeks grow warm. Barbara went on to talk about how brides should never let guests upstage them, especially family. She said some people just loved attention and did not understand their place. Her words floated in the air like smoke, thin but choking. I pushed food around my plate and tried to ignore the tightness in my throat. At the end of the night, as we stood to leave, Barbara looked straight at me and said, "Weddings show who respects the bride and who loves the spotlight." By the time the bridal shower rolled around, I was already thinking of not going to the wedding at all. I told everything to my best friend Jasmine while we sat in her small kitchen with tea. She frowned and shook her head. She said if I skipped the wedding, people would only hear Brianna's side. They would call me the jealous sister who could not handle her younger sibling getting married first. It would become another story about how I always needed attention. Her words were harsh, but I knew she was trying to protect me. That night, Dad called. His voice was bright and full of pride as he talked about walking Brianna down the aisle, about how he had dreamed of that moment since she was little. He said it would mean the world to him to have both his daughters there together. I listened with my eyes closed, feeling the old love in his voice. When he asked if he could count on me to be there, I heard myself say yes. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, feeling slightly sick, knowing I had just promised to walk into a place where I was not really wanted. The bridal shower was held at a pretty rented hall with soft pink decorations. When I arrived, the bridesmaids were already in matching silk robes, taking photos with fake laughter and perfect poses. Brianna stood in the middle of them, glowing for the camera. Before I could even put my purse down, the planner rushed over and asked if I could help set up the food tables because the caterer was late. Nobody else moved. I pasted on a smile and started laying out plates and cups while the others clinked glasses for boomerang videos. Barbara only spoke to me to ask if the cups were straight or the tablecloth smooth. Every time I walked near the photo corner, Brianna turned away or the photographer suddenly became too busy. At one point an aunt suggested a picture of both sisters together. Barbara jumped in quickly and said maybe later because they were running out of time. Later never came. When I got home that night, I saw a new post on social media. Brianna and her bridesmaids laughing in a perfect group shot. If you looked closely at the edge of the frame, you could see me, blurred, carrying a tray in the background. In the middle of the shower, I slipped out to the bathroom hallway to take a breath. The music from the hall was muffled there, and I let my shoulders drop for a moment. As I stood near the door, I heard voices around the corner. Brianna and Barbara. I was not trying to listen, but their words were clear in the quiet hallway. Barbara said she was worried I would try to be the main character again. She said they should seat me in the very back row during the ceremony so I would not ruin any pictures. Brianna laughed, a bright fake sound, and said I should be grateful she invited me at all, because some brides cut people who do not know how to behave. My body went cold. I stood frozen, staring at the tiled floor, feeling like I had been pushed outside my own life. The plain dress rule suddenly felt like part of a bigger plan to hide me. When there was a break in their chatter, I slipped out through the side exit instead of back into the party. Nobody called after me. Nobody noticed I was gone. Outside, the air was cool, but my face burned with shame and anger. The next day, I drove to Mom's house, hoping she would finally see what was happening. I sat at her small kitchen table while she chopped vegetables for dinner. My voice shook as I told her about the group chat message and the bathroom conversation. She listened, but instead of anger, her face showed worry and tiredness. She said Brianna was stressed, that brides could be dramatic when they wanted things to be perfect. She asked me, please, to keep the peace and not add more problems. I opened my phone and showed her the screenshot of Brianna's deleted message. I repeated the words I had heard with my own ears. Mom sighed and rubbed her temples. She said, "Your sister has always been sensitive about you. You know that. Please just do this for me so the wedding can be calm." Her words felt like a door closing. I realized that my pain was smaller in her mind than her dream of a smooth wedding day. I sat there with a hollow feeling in my chest, understanding that even my own mother would rather I shrink than risk tension. On the drive home, I turned the radio off and drove in silence. That night, I opened my banking app to distract myself. As I scrolled through old transactions, one stood out. A large transfer to Mom from months ago. She had called me crying about a broken pipe and a repair bill she could not cover. The next day, while we spoke on the phone, she mentioned paying off some wedding deposits. Her words slipped out in a rush before she tried to change the subject. My mind connected the amounts. The money I had given for a house repair had mostly gone toward the wedding venue and decorations. I sat very still, the phone pressed to my ear, as I realized I had helped pay for a day where the bride wanted me hidden like a mistake in the back of a closet. It was like being asked to buy the paint for a picture where I did not appear. After the call ended, I went out to my car and sat behind the wheel in the dark. Tears slid down my face as I stared at the dashboard. My own family had used my help to build a day that did not have space for me. I whispered out loud, "I helped fund the day I am being erased from." By the next morning, the sharp sting of betrayal had cooled into a strange, steady calm. I was tired of begging for a place in my own family. If Brianna wanted plain, I would give her plain. But I would not give her my spirit. I sat with my laptop and searched for outfits that were simple but powerful. Clean lines. Good fabric. No glitter at all. Nothing that broke her rules, but nothing that made me look small. An idea formed slowly. I did not want a dress at all. I wanted something that felt like armor. I found a local designer whose work looked minimal but strong and sent her a message, explaining that I needed a custom piece for a wedding with very strict rules. We met at her small studio later that week. She listened while I told her the whole story. She nodded with kind eyes and said we could respect every rule on paper and still honor who I was inside. When I left, we had a plan. I felt lighter than I had in days. For the first time, I was not trying to win approval. I was choosing my own version of plain. At the fitting, the designer moved around me with pins and soft tape. She showed me the cream pantsuit she had sketched. The lines were clean and sharp, the fabric smooth but not shiny. No sequins. No loud pattern. No bright color anywhere. We chose a simple top with a modest neckline, straight trousers that fell perfectly, and a jacket that fit my shoulders exactly right. She suggested tiny stud earrings and a plain clutch. No necklace. No bracelets. Nothing that could be called flashy. As I stood in front of the mirror in the almost finished suit, something inside me shifted. I did not look like someone trying to hide. I looked like someone who knew who she was even without decoration. The designer caught my eye in the mirror and smiled. She said, "This is as plain as they asked for. The problem for them is that they did not expect you to glow without sparkle." I laughed softly for the first time in days. At that moment, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would follow every rule they set. But I would not apologize for existing or for taking up space in any room. Completely. Now, standing in the church parking lot on the wedding day, I felt that promise echo in my chest. I stepped out of the car in the finished cream pantsuit. The morning air was cool against my skin. My hair was pulled back into a smooth, low bun. My makeup was soft, just a hint of color on my lips and cheeks. Simple stud earrings, a small cream clutch, plain nude shoes. If anyone tried to accuse me of breaking the rules, they would have nothing. As I walked toward the entrance, groups of guests turned their heads. I heard the flow of their conversations pause for a second, then restart with low whispers. It was not the outfit itself. It was the way it fit, the way I carried myself. Inside the foyer, I saw Tyler standing with some groomsmen. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me. Beside him, Barbara's mouth tightened as she leaned into her phone, speaking quickly. Before I could reach the front rows, one of the ushers hurried toward me. He smiled nervously and said the bride wanted to speak to me in the bridal suite before I took my seat. I nodded and followed him down the hall. The bridal suite smelled like hairspray and flowers when I stepped in. Brianna stood in the middle of the room in her white dress, veil pinned but not yet lowered. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were cold when she looked at me. "You broke the agreement," she said at once. "You still look like you are trying to make it about you." I blinked in surprise. I had expected tension, but not this speed. I reminded her of every rule she had given me. No glitter. No bright colors. No heavy makeup. No bold nails. I spread my hands and asked her which rule I had broken. She glanced over me again, angry and restless. "It is the way you look," she snapped. "You walk in like you are some fashion show. People will be looking at you, not at me." Her words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Heat rose in my chest. For years I had stayed small to keep her comfortable. "You always find a way to steal my moment," she shouted, voice shaking. I took a slow breath and finally said, "Maybe the problem is not my clothes. Maybe the problem is how you see me." Before Brianna could answer, the door swung open and Barbara walked in with sharp steps. She took one look at my outfit and joined in at once. "As hosts, we can decide who sits where," she said, folding her arms. "If you cannot follow the spirit of the rule, you can sit in the far back or you can leave. We will not let you ruin the photos." My mouth opened, but before I could speak, Dad stepped into the room. He wore a dark suit and a proud smile that faded as he felt the tension. "What is going on?" he asked, looking from Brianna to me. Barbara did not hesitate. "Your other daughter is trying to ruin the wedding," she said calmly, like she was giving a weather report. "She refuses to respect Brianna's wishes and is causing drama." I stared at her, stunned by how easily she flipped the story. Dad's eyes searched my face. I could see confusion and worry there. For a second, I thought of shrinking again, of saying it was a misunderstanding just to keep him calm. Instead I stood still, my heart pounding, waiting to see if anyone would ask for my side. Tyler appeared in the doorway next, pulled in by the raised voices. His tie was slightly crooked, and there was a crease between his brows. He asked what was happening and why everyone was upset when guests were already seated. Brianna spoke first. She said I had broken her only simple request. She said I had shown up dressed to take attention and that she could not believe I would do this on her big day. I felt something inside me harden. I took my phone from my clutch and opened the screenshot from the group chat. With a steady hand, I held it out to Tyler. He read the line where Brianna had written that she would not let me pull that again and that she was the bride this time. Color drained from his face. I scrolled to show him more texts where she complained about me and where Barbara talked about controlling the family image and keeping me away from the cameras. Tyler slowly looked up at his mother. "I did not sign up for this," he said in a low voice. "I signed up to marry someone kind. Right now, that is not what I am seeing." While we argued in the back, time kept moving in the main hall. Guests shifted in the pews, checking their programs and their phones. Soft music played on a loop. The pastor finally stepped out to ask what was causing the delay. He listened quietly as pieces of the story spilled out. Brianna complained about my outfit. Barbara spoke about respect and image. Dad tried to calm everyone. Tyler mentioned the messages. I stood there, feeling like a child again, even though I was fully grown. The pastor raised his hand and everyone went silent. He said he would not start a wedding while the people involved were tearing each other down. He said a ceremony meant nothing if there was cruelty under it. Out in the hallway, cousins and aunts whispered loudly. Some came to me and said I should just apologize and change my seat. Others said they had seen how I was treated for years and that I should walk out and save my own peace. The pastor looked straight at Brianna and said gently, "If this is how you treat your own sister, we need to ask what kind of marriage we are blessing today." Honestly, Brianna opened her mouth to argue, but a new voice cut through the tension. Our grandmother slowly walked into the suite, leaning on her cane. I had not even known she had arrived yet. Everyone went quiet as she looked around the room. Her eyes were old but still sharp. She said she had heard enough in the hallway to understand what was going on. In a calm, steady voice, she spoke about the jealousy and competition she had seen between us for years. She said she had watched me shrink myself to keep the peace while others took advantage of that silence. She said weddings were meant to celebrate love, not punish one daughter for existing beside another. Her words hit the room like cold water. Brianna's face crumpled, and Barbara's lips pressed together in a hard line. Grandma turned to them and asked, "Do you really want your wedding remembered for pushing your own blood to the back like she is a shameful secret?" No one answered. Even Tyler looked shaken. For the first time that day, I felt someone had fully seen me and spoken the truth out loud, with no fear of who it might upset. After a long silence, the room filled with excuses and half-apologies. Brianna said she was stressed, that she had just wanted one day that was only about her. Barbara murmured about image and planning. None of it fully fixed the hurt, but something had to give. Under pressure from Grandma and the pastor, Brianna finally agreed that I could stay for the ceremony. However, she said in a tight voice that she still wanted me seated in the back and not included in the formal family photos. Her words felt like a bargain with a bitter taste. I could have fought harder. Part of me wanted to walk out and never look back. But another part of me was tired of wrestling for a place in a story that had already been written without me. So I nodded. I did not agree because I thought she was right. I agreed because I was choosing my own peace over their script. As the music started up again in the main hall, I walked down the side aisle to a back row seat. My heart ached, but I also felt a strange thin layer of relief settle over me. Quietly, alone. From my seat in the back, the church looked like a scene from a movie. Soft lights, white flowers, rows of guests in their best clothes. Brianna walked down the aisle on Dad's arm, veil trailing behind her. People sighed and smiled. I folded my hands in my lap and watched. Even from a distance, I could feel the earlier tension buzzing under the pretty surface. A few guests kept glancing toward the side doors, as if expecting something else to break. In front of me, a teenager held up a phone to record. I saw the screen and realized I was in the frame, sitting alone in the last family row. My calm face, my plain but sharp outfit, my distance from the front, all told a quiet story. Later, that short clip appeared online with a simple caption about the wedding. In the comments, strangers wrote that they could feel family tension even without knowing why. As Brianna and Tyler said their vows, I listened to the promises about kindness, honor, and support. The words floated through the air like a test none of us had fully passed yet. I wondered if they truly heard the promises they were making. The reception hall was bright and full of clinking dishes and low music. People were eating, laughing, trying to pretend the late start had never happened. I sat at a table near the back with a few cousins who gave me careful smiles. After dinner, the lights dimmed and a slideshow began to play on the big screen. Pictures of Brianna and Tyler as kids, then teenagers, then a couple. Soft music filled the room. People watched with warm faces. Then something shifted. The music cut out with a sharp pop. For a second there was only static, then a voice came over the speakers. It was Brianna, from earlier in the bridal suite, laughing with Barbara as they mocked guests. They called some relatives tacky. They called me desperate for attention and said they had to control where I sat. Chairs scraped as people turned their heads. You could see guests recognize their own names and jokes made at their expense. The room went silent, heavy and stunned. At the head table, Brianna jumped up, shouting to cut it off. Tyler slowly stood too, his face pale as the audio stopped mid-sentence. The damage, however, was already clearly fully done. Tyler reached for the microphone with hands that shook a little. The DJ handed it over, eyes wide. The room stayed quiet, every guest waiting to see what he would say. He took a deep breath and apologized to everyone for what they had just heard. He said he had tried for months to ignore certain red flags around control and image, but now everything was out in the open. His voice cracked slightly as he talked about kindness and respect, and how the words on that recording did not match the kind of life he wanted to build. He looked at Barbara and said he loved her but could not defend her behavior. Then he looked at Brianna and said that calling people tacky and trying to hide family was not the kind of wife he had hoped for. He even mentioned the way they had treated me over a plain outfit that followed every rule. He said, "If this is how you treat my family and your own, then we have a bigger problem than any dress or photo." His words did not sound like a groom making a simple toast. They sounded like someone drawing a line and finally choosing truth over keeping the peace. The room buzzed with shock. Some guests looked down at their plates. Others stared openly at Brianna and Barbara. I sat in my chair, heart racing. I could have stayed silent and watched the night fall apart around them. Instead, I slowly stood up and walked toward the front. My legs felt shaky, but my mind was clear. I asked Tyler quietly if I could speak. He handed me the microphone without hesitation. I turned to the guests. My voice trembled at first, then grew stronger. I said I had been hurt and embarrassed. I said families should not treat each other as enemies. But I also said hurt people sometimes hurt others, and that women in particular were pushed to compete instead of lift each other up. I did not list every cruel thing Brianna and Barbara had done. I did not drag them by name. I talked about boundaries and self-worth, about not shrinking to make others comfortable, and about choosing not to answer cruelty with more cruelty. When I finished, the room was quiet for a heartbeat. Then people began to clap. Some even stood, phones in hand, recording every word. I felt my hands tremble, but for once it was not from fear. It was from finally speaking clearly for myself in front of everyone. By the next morning, clips from the reception were all over social media. Someone had posted the audio leak, but the video that spread fastest was the one of my short speech. People added captions like "Sister told to dress plain still saves the wedding." In the comments, strangers wrote long messages about owning your worth and setting boundaries with family. Some shared their own stories of being the quiet sibling, the one asked to shrink. Brands and small pages reposted the clip as an example of grace under pressure. My phone buzzed non-stop. Jasmine sent hearts and proud messages. A few cousins apologized for not speaking up sooner. I felt overwhelmed, but also strangely calm. For once, the story was not twisted. That afternoon, Brianna called. Her voice was hoarse from crying. She admitted she had been terrified I would always be the pretty and successful one, and that she would live in my shadow. She said the more she tried to control things, the more afraid she became. I listened quietly, then told her I would meet with her only in a neutral place and only if she was ready to really listen. I was done walking into rooms where my pain was treated as a small price for someone else's perfect image. Months passed and the noise around the video slowly faded, though it never fully disappeared. Brianna and Tyler started counseling. I heard that Barbara did not like it, but she had less control over their choices now. I took some of the attention and turned it into something useful. I began speaking at small events and online groups about family dynamics, self-worth, and learning to hold firm boundaries with people you love. I did not share every detail of my own story, but I shared enough to help others feel seen. At a small family gathering one evening, I walked in wearing a bright red dress just because I liked it. No one said a word about my outfit. Later, Brianna came over, hands twisting together. She apologized again, more clearly this time. Then she asked, shyly, if I would help her pick an outfit for an event because she trusted my eye now. I smiled and said, I will help you, but I will not shrink for you. She nodded, eyes wet. As I moved through the room, in whatever I wanted to wear, I felt steady. That quiet, unshaken confidence was the real revenge. It felt like finally coming home to myself.